Hey everyone, Corey from Aquarium Co-op, getting the live stream started. What is it, 6 minutes early here? Thought I'd get a little head start and reward the people hanging out in chat. We've been chatting for the last 45 minutes, hour, so I usually am chatting in the chat box before I get started. I was doing a water change back here, and I kind of have to stick around and do that. And of course, I was like, oh, I should go eat dinner before I do this, and I totally flooded this thing, so I had to shop back it and all that. But normally I do hang out in the chat. And so I want to start by letting everyone know that if you want, the next section I'm going to do on this little stream is questions that were asked in the comments last week. So last Sunday I said, put comments down below after the feed uploads, and the ones that get the most, thumbs up or likes, I'll address first while people are funneling into the live stream. And so we're going to do that right now. And, I'm going to do a screen share here, and hopefully it turns out good. And first I'm going to check and make sure audio is good. No one's complaining about it, so audio must be doing okay. That's a good thing. We're going to go ahead and screen share here. And there we go. Now I got to flip all the way over to there. So the first question is right here. It says, which is better, sponge filter, fluidized bed filter, or ceramic media filter? And then Duck chimes in and says K1 filter and fluidized sand also. Well, it's kind of, I don't know if my filtration video had come out yet. I think it already come out. Yeah. So I kind of addressed this, but I think sponge filter, like if we talk about what we're going to put in a filter, I think sponge filter is the most efficient for most people. And it's because sponge filter is very cheap. But even if you just get like pieces of sponge, it doesn't have to be an actual sponge filter, but like padded sponge or matten filter, that kind of stuff can be cleaned and reused a very, very, very long time. With a fluidized bed filter, if we're talking sand, you really got to dial it in perfectly, because if you don't, then you're blowing sand into your tank. And ceramic media, it works just fine. Like I've got some here on my desk next to me, and I would totally use it if I have it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it, just because I personally feel like the small pores on ceramic media can get clogged up. That being said, if you have lots of pre-filters in your filter, like a sump with catching all the debris before it goes in, then I think ceramic media is very good. So, all those have their pros and cons there. And then the K1 filter, I like the K1 filter if you have lots of room for it, because it's self-cleaning. It doesn't collect any debris. It knocks all of the debris off, which means it won't filter out any fines, but at the same time, it will, break down bacteria for you. So everything's got its use. This one's a little more in-depth questions. The second one, and I think the last one I'm going to answer off the comments here, because there wasn't that much activity yet. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more this week now that people know I'm actually answering them. But it's John Zim here. He says, LED lighting for DIY, or DIY, but I'm guessing means DIY. And what is the difference between red, blue, and white? Is it different gases inside, or is it just the color of the lens? And then what programs do I use to edit? So now that we've seen that, I'm going to flip back to, you guys can actually see me as I'm explaining this. All right, so there we are. When it comes to LED lighting, when we're talking about red, blue, green, white, yellow LEDs, there's actually a tiny little coating that goes onto the lens. Well, from what I understand, lenses are made up of lots of layers. And something like a blue, they actually put a very thin layer of like sapphire on it. Now it's lab-made sapphire, but that's what's keeping the price of some LEDs high. Is every year that goes by, they get better and better at producing these lenses or the sapphire or whatever it is that's gonna give us the view we want. But when it comes to LED lighting, it doesn't really matter if it's red, blue, green, white LEDs. For the most part, it's fairly similar. What we do know is, we're talking about plants. Plants see blues and reds really well, greens not as efficiently. And so when I say well, it's not as efficiently. So if we had a light that was all green LEDs, it would look very good to the human eye, because the human eye sees green the best. Plants see it the worst out of the color spectrum. Whereas a light that's really heavy on red or blue, our eyes don't see nearly as well, but the plants can see it. So sometimes like the Monster Ray light that Phoenix makes, it'll be kind of a really pinkish red hue, and it looks dim, But with a par meter, it's actually still very bright because a par meter can see all of the colors and it can take that in, whereas our eyes don't perceive it that way. So last thing, the software I use for editing my videos, up until about last week, I used Filmora Wondershare. It's about a $40 program. There's a free version too, I think. Super duper basic editing because, as you guys see, I don't do a lot of editing. If I sneeze, you see me sneeze because I want it to be real and raw. But, you know, it did allow me to do a few things, and it mostly let me just chop up video and rearrange stuff the way I wanted it to. Now I'm using Final Cut Pro 10, which, you know, I feel like I stepped up to the big boy game because I had to buy like a $1,400 MacBook Pro to run it, and then the software is $300. So I invested a lot of money, but I put out a couple of videos already, and instantly people commented like, did you get a better camera? This looks way better. So maybe it's worth the money. I don't know. I like that it renders a lot faster. With Filmora, it was taking a long time to render videos, and the Mac much faster. Even though like I have better spec computers than the Mac, the workflow on the Mac was working quite well. So now you guys know, once this uploads, leave comments down below. You know, especially if you're watching this for the first time right now, like not live, leave comments down below. And then if they get thumbs up and people think they're good comments, then we'll answer them on the next live stream. So now I'm ready to delve straight into, you know, asking questions here. And I'm just going to pick a point and start. So Bob's Dank Tank says, what does it take to become a moderator? I don't know. I guess the longer you hang out and you are an even-headed guy, you might become a moderator. Like, there's no real privilege to being a moderator. You actually do a little bit of work, but it's mostly just to, you know, keep everyone from swearing and being racist and things like that. Keeping the chat, you know, decent, I guess. I almost forgot. By the way, if you guys could all do me a favor and, you know, share this to your Facebook group, tell your grandma, make her watch it. You know, let's get this up, you know, a lot of viewers because it helps me out. Why not? So Gary says, my intake sponge filters are great. They are. I've been using them for so long. They don't make a store any money, but they're so good for the hobbyist. Naysila Medea is asking how to start a guppy colony. I would say get yourself a couple of trios, maybe 2 males, 4 females. Get them in a tank, get a lot of cover, whether it's Easter grass, like literally Easter grass, or Java moss or other plants. Go ahead and do that. Make it so they can barely see each other. And once they start firing off babies every 30 days, you'll be making more guppies. Ghost Knife asks, have I used Seachem Flourish before? If yes, how do you apply it? You're going to dose it straight into the tank. I've used it quite extensively. Know that it's very light in nitrogen. So usually you want to use Flourish nitrogen in addition to that at least. But really for Flourish, in my opinion, to work well, you need to use all of those products together. You know, maybe not the Excel, and maybe you can leave 1 or 2 out depending on what your actual water has. But go, you know, search my channel and watch the video on aquarium fertilizers. I talk for like an hour and some change, mostly about Seachem products, and you can know what we think about them. Let's see here. So I'm going to also say, if I missed your question, it's been like 5 minutes, ask it again. Maybe I just don't like that question, but, you know, as everyone has said, it's basically hard to keep up with the live stream, so I just do the best I can. So let's see. Jose says, I have a Phoenix Fuge Planet Plus along with a Stingray and a Phoenix Monster Ray, all 48-inch on a 55-gallon. That you're about to set up. Well, what kind of plants can I grow? Will I need CO2? You can grow probably any plant you're going to want to. You'll need CO2 if you're trying to grow plants that need it, like dwarf baby tears and stuff like that. Otherwise, you could just grow some really nice, like deep red plants and stuff like that. And there's actually a fish room tour coming up. It's going to be coming out this Friday, which, you know, half of you are going, oh, I'm so sad. That means there's no fish room update video. But fish room tour, and he's got a 40 breeder, and he's running like 2 Planet Pluses and a Monster Ray, and it looks amazing. So you can kind of check that out and get, you know, a little more in-depth experience about it by watching his. Inquisitive Fish Guy asks, can polyfilter be used in sumps? Totally. And in fact, I'm gonna install it on my tank behind me. I've been using filter socks, and these goldfish, I'm feeding them so much, they're clogging it every day. And I just don't want to do laundry of filter socks every 2 or 3 days. And so I'm going to build a thing to do it. I think I'm going to use like a trash can and have the downspout pipe go into it, but fill it with polyfiber, and then just make it so it's easy to take out, dump into a trash can, fill more polyfiber, put it back. Obviously, I got to drill a bunch of holes and stuff, but I'll probably make a video because I saw on a saltwater forum a guy was doing that, and he did it out of ABS, 2-inch ABS pipe, but I'm not sure that's the best. I mean, maybe I'll try a couple, but yeah, I think it could be used, and I know it can, and I have before, so. Let's see. Adam Till. When making changes in lighting, how long do you wait to see changes in plants, mainly dwarf sage and various sorts? I usually tell people it's going to take roughly a week to 2 weeks to see any change you make in a planted aquarium, whether it's more fertilizer or something like that. It takes a while for plants to really respond. Just like when you move a plant, it takes about a week for it to kind of get its roots set and start uptaking nutrients again. Let's see. Edgar says, can you give a pufferfish like 101 or consider a separate video on pufferfish? I totally could. Mostly for puffers, know this. They, for the most part, most of them are aggressive. Some aren't. There are lots of freshwater puffers. There's lots of brackish water puffers. And there's lots of saltwater puffers. There's all those types. But I'm going to assume we're talking about freshwater. And the biggest thing is making sure their teeth stay trimmed down. It's kind of like a beak. And if they're not eating on, let's say, clams and snails and crunchy things, the teeth overgrow. And kind of, if they were just eating like frozen bloodworms all the time, the teeth keep growing and they get longer and longer and longer and longer. And pretty soon they can't open or close their mouth anymore. And we actually have to do surgery on them to trim the teeth back down so they can eat. But most puffers are going to have to live solo. There are a few that can live with other stuff like the Amazon puffer. And then there's like the Mabu puffer and sometimes a Faka puffer. And I know half you guys just said, no, mine won't do it. But I've got 2 at the store that live with other fish. And I've got lots of friends that keep puffers. And it can be done. Not that I'm recommending it, and know that at any day you could kill those fish. But that's a quick primer. There is a video on Amazon puffers. And I could probably do some more. I need to do an in-depth one probably because I love puffers. And I sell a lot of them. And I play with a lot of them. But I just haven't done that video yet. How can you tell what wood is safe to use in an aquascape? For that one, I tell people you need to identify the type of wood and look it up on Google because there are some saps and things like that that are very toxic to the aquarium world. So I can't in good faith just say, oh, if it came out of the ocean, you can use it or anything like that because I would be doing a disservice. I think Waro Joey is going to come out with a really in-depth video on how to collect wood and stuff like that. I think he's only done it on rocks so far, but yeah, I would look for that video. Happy Sasha says, my molly is aggressive to my platy. Please help. I would have to ask more questions, but make sure that the molly has plenty of its own kind to spread the aggression around and, make sure there's line of sight blocks. So if your aquarium is this big, make sure that, here and here and here, there's maybe tall plants or rocks or something like that so that when that fish is getting picked on, he can dart around and get out of the line of sight. For fish, a lot of times, out of sight, out of mind. And so I would try to alleviate it that way. Got people in here watching from Portugal. Sweet. Catching up here, hopefully. Yeah, okay, I'm not that far behind at the moment. All right, what is the best way to keep blackworms in your fridge without grossing everyone in the house out because it's in your community fridge? If I had to devise a way to make this work without grossing people out, it would be probably a Tupperware that's not see-through. Like, get it red or something like a Christmas Tupperware. And then the top, cut out like big sections of it and use polyfiber or, like cheesecloth, something so that no one can see in, but air will still come in and out. And that way, it's just like those mollies we were just talking about, out of sight, out of mind. If people don't have to look at it, it's when they see those worms, they're going, no, we're not doing that in the fridge. But obviously you want to clean up after yourself. Don't leave any blackworms in the sink when you're rinsing them. Don't leave a blackworm to get dried and crusty on the shelf of the fridge. Keep it clean, keep it out of sight, keep it low, treat it like, you're not going to put, beef that's like bloody in a container on the top shelf and have it drip over everything. You want to put it down low, make it as safe as you can. Yeah, that's how I would do it. It's not butter asks, would it be okay if you email a picture of your hardscape and lighting and get my opinion on how I should plan it and changes I should make? You certainly can. It might take me a while to get back. I can give an opinion, but changes, they're mostly an aesthetic thing. So, while I might look at your yard and go, I'd do it this way, don't think that I know any better. It's just, it would be purely my enjoyment, really. Let's see here. Marine land, hang on back filter, good, bad, ugly. I would say it's all of those things. I actually don't like the penguin line and anything that's got the bio wheel. Best snails to breed for profit? Probably mystery snails, honestly. What's the best overall planted tank temp? If I have to pick one out of thin air, I'd say 75, 76 degrees. If you keep them up at 78 to 80, like those angels are going to be way more aggressive because that's breeding temperature. If you keep them a little bit cooler, it does all right. Today's live stream is brought to you by Dairy Gold Chocolate Milk. It's the only thing going to get me through this. Let's see. Time to get myself in trouble. Tell us a good customer story today. Well, I'll use one from today. I wasn't involved in it directly. I was packing things to ship out, and I'm just kind of listening in over here, my other employee, and there's an older gentleman asking about plants and stuff like that. He's never done a planted tank, blah, blah, blah. And eventually gets to the point where he's asking about the aquatic fertilizer, right? And so my employees tell him about how you'd use it, 1 pump per 10 gallons, unless you didn't have very many plants, and you'd do less. If you had a lot of plants, you'd do more. And then he says, so I just take the plant out of the aquarium and I pump this straight onto the plant, and you're thinking, okay, that's a little bit bizarre, which, we explain, no, you put it straight into the water, that's why it's 1 pump per 10 gallons of water. But then, so that just kind of went on for a while. And then, later it turns out that he also asked if the fertilizer would help his plastic plants. No joke. Like that actually happened, and after the fact, I was kind of snickering and going, yeah, it actually would, because it would probably help him grow some algae on those plants and actually help them grow. But, that's why I'm so careful when I'm recommending things and stuff like that, because you would think that everyone knows you pump this into water, but he thought maybe you pump it onto the plant. And so that's why I'm always so careful when I'm like that driftwood thing. I got to be super careful, because there's going to be 10% of the people out there that take what I say is just, oh, that's truth, and they're just throwing anything in their aquarium. And so got to be really careful. And don't get me wrong, the man was super nice. He appreciated our help. It was his first time in the store, going to be a great customer, but that's, just a day in the life of the fish store employee where you're trying to explain something. You're just kind of, what? No, okay. So I got to let me reiterate what I'm trying to say here. So, yeah. Let's see. So this mic actually is not new at all. Ginger said she didn't know it's going to be live. This mic has always been here. I've just moved it closer to my mouth. I wanted it to be off camera, if you will. And I have, all this equipment you can see right here. Like this is a shock mount, and it's mounted to an arm and all those things. And the reason I bought all that is Lamont, when he would talk, he tended to like tap the table as he was talking, and that was driving people nuts. So I invested in all that equipment. I don't really tap the table, and I figure I wasn't happy with my sound. I've been trying really hard to get the sound better in this room, and what I found was the closer I am to this mic, the better it sounds. And so while not a new mic, it is in a different position, and I hope it's improving it, because that's, every week that goes by, and this, this kind of irked me when people were talking about this, about the live streams, like on John's Tank Talk and stuff like that, is like, oh, I wonder if it's going to get better, and it was kind of bad, and blah, blah, blah. Realize that a guy like me or John or Joey or anyone that is doing this on a regular basis, we are trying very hard to work out every single kink we can find and make this the best experience possible. Like, I know the video is not perfect. Unfortunately, I'm limited by 720p for the Google Hangout. And yeah, I could use a bunch of software, and I was testing it a bit to get it up to 1080, but I'm not sure that it's going to be able to stream fast enough for you guys, and I don't want to make it worse. So realize that while we're not making videos, we're working on making our setups even better for you guys. Hopefully, that is the goal. All right, I'm really falling behind, but just bear with me, guys. I'm going to bang out as many questions as I can. Promise you. Edgar says, you once mentioned you work with African cichlids. Can you tell us about that experience? Well, I used to run a store that just focused only on like African cichlids pretty much. And so when you work in an environment like that, naturally you end up breeding tons of stuff there, but then at home as well, because you fall in love with stuff. And so, you know, it used to be, I was like everyone else. I just had a ton of African cichlid tanks. And then, you know, and then I got into planted tanks, stuff like that. And then I just kind of kept a little bit of everything. But, you know, now I'm getting back into more Africans. Like this week, I actually ordered myself some yellow labs and some, I'm having a brain fart, blue dolphins, but Morii, Setacara Morii. So I want to put up a tank of those because I always tell myself I'm going to do a dolphin tank, but I always end up selling them off or getting rid of them when I get a different rare fish. So let's see. You've got 19 guppies, but your local store only sells you a tiny bit of job moss. You made like 4 breeding mops. Will that work? It'll totally help. Yep. Do you color your shrimp tank to maintain coloration? I do, yeah. If you see a bad one, pull it out for sure. It's only going to make it worse. Nakia Roberts says, what gallon should I start at? Please help. I'm not sure what that is in reference to, so can't really help you. Any experience with discus, Bob asks? If so, any tips, any things to note? Usually the warmer you keep them, the easier are. I find wild-caught discus actually much easier than tank raised. But mostly feed them way too much food, clean them way too much, and keep them way too hot, and they'll do well. In my koi tanks, I should set up some aquaponics. Yeah, I kind of want to, but I just haven't played around with it yet. But definitely in the future, I plan to. Garrett asks if I sell fish online. I don't. I used to all the time. You know, I've done over 10,000 orders online, and a lot of that was fish. And I'm just, the way I want to ship them, like Greg Sage does, it's so labor intensive that I just don't have the time for it, honestly. Let's see. Tim asks, what fish do I regret owning the most in my home tanks? If I had to pick one, so far it's convicts. I think I bought 6 convicts. I'm down to 3. They keep killing each other, and part of the problem is they sent like 5 males and 1 female. It's like a bloodbath. They put some decor in there to break it up, and it's still not going so well, but I basically got to let them get down to where they start breeding, and then I can increase population. But that's probably my biggest regret so far. You know, I don't have that many fish I don't like. I pretty much have lots of stuff I love. What are some things I do in my shop to remain competitive with other local stores? YouTube is one of them for sure. Getting your name out there. I really try and respond to all emails, Facebook questions, stuff like that all the time. And then this is going to seem like a no-brainer, but almost unanimously stores don't do it. Here's if you want to own a fish store and you want to be successful, here's the one tip. One trick. Show up to work on time. Mind blown, right? But how often do you show up to a fish store right when they're supposed to open and they're not open yet or not there? And that happens all the time. My competitors, you know, they don't hire enough people or whatever it is to be open on time. And yeah, I don't open till noon, but guess what? We're there every time, always. You know, you got to be open when you're saying you're going to be open, because nothing pisses people off more than making a trip somewhere and they're not open. You feel like they're, you know, thinking you're not worth their time, and that's not. So just be open on time. That's like one of the biggest competitive advantages I have for sure. Let's see. What else can you put in with your rams? Sherry, I'm guessing you're talking about some German blue rams. If not, we can you know, address that later. But usually other things that like the warmer temps. So cardinal tetras, stir-by cories. You know, I would say probably most tetras and things. You know, if you're running at 82, you got a lot of options. If you run them higher than that, then you'd be more like discus, like what other discus tank mates. But a lot of things can go with rams, in my opinion. What kind of goldfish do you have, and what do I feed them? For these guys back here, I've got some Mirandas. Let's see here. I'll try to look at my camera. Like that guy's a short-bodied Ryukin. That guy's a Aranda. I've got some Ranchus. I've got this one Shabunkin I'm in love with because he's white and black, and my favorite koi is a Shiro Utsuri, which he's kind of like a poor man's Shiro Utsuri, so I can keep him indoors. That's kind of cool. And then I've got some black Moors in there, and currently what I'm feeding them, like today, they ate on the auto feeder. They're getting Cichlid Excel pellets, and then like I put in 2 ounces of frozen brine shrimp in there. You can see all this right here. This is all bubbles because I did a huge water change earlier today. I try to do one to make the tank look decent. You know, I just feed so much that it gets kind of cruddy. All right, let's check out some more questions here. What are some other easily bred fish in ponds besides mollies, swordtails, and guppies? There's a few egg scatterers like rosy barbs, cherry barbs, white clouds, some of the dwarf rainbow fish, things like that. Anything where you're going to give a big body of water to and they can scatter eggs and stuff, it works out quite well. Should you start a guppy colony in a 40 tall or a 55 gallon? I think either one is just fine. So if you like one more than the other, go for that. It really won't matter for you. Let's see. Is there any way to sterilize wood to use in an aquascape? The best way to sterilize it is either A, to like bake it, or B, boil it, or C, fill a trash can and put like insane amounts of salt in there till it won't dissolve anymore. That will kill most things. And then you could soak it in fresh water to get that salt back out of the wood. Ruben says, yeah, I have orange laser corridoras. I noticed some white growth on tails and some fins. What is this? It's not dots or ick. It's like a growth. Should you be scared? It could be a cyst. And it could be like just like some cottony fungusy growth like columnaris. I would try my first, if it was me personally and I own this fish, I would throw in some erythromycin, which is an antibiotic, but it also works on mild fungal infections and it's real easy. I would try that personally if I was running into that. All right, let's see. What do we got here? Mike says, great collaboration with KG Tropicals. Going to finish it after my live stream. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. We've got at least one more video coming out to that series. And then I'm going to be on his show in a few weeks or something like that. But my goal, and that's the thing, is my goal started out, I wanted to prove that you could do planted African cichlid tanks because I'm already proving goldfish planted tanks here. But I wanted to plant his whole customaquariums.com tank with plants, stuff like that. But he wanted to do the discus tank. So I said, all right, how about this? We'll do the discus tank. If that goes well for you, let's talk about that African cichlid tank because I think they'll both look really good. So I'm hoping to do even more with him on that because it was a fun thing. I'd never done like kind of over online before, and I think it's going to work out pretty cool. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Adam says, have I ever investigated the effect of tannins, black water on par requirements? Ooh, I haven't. The only thing I've tested was like my pond was green water, right? Like so green you could only see like that far into it. When I put the par meter at the bottom of that thing, it still was over 100 par, which just shows you how bright the sun is. But yeah, I probably should test some tannin water. I haven't done that, and I own the par meter, so why not? I just got to get a lot of tannins in water, and then we could know because I don't know that data exists out there yet. So I should be the guy that does that. Gary says, what happened to KD Tropical? Nothing. He's put out a video today. How many fish can you have in a 10-gallon salt water? Because for a month I've had one maroon clam, one cleaner shrimp because I'm scared to add anything else. Darren, while I'm not like a saltwater expert, I would say you're probably close to being maxed. Now, I did saltwater different than other people. Like I fully planted up my saltwater tank, so I use mangroves growing out of the back. I liked Chaetomorphia in the display. Uh-oh, goldfish just got fed. That's what's going on right there. That's the auto feeder going off for the second time today. So you can watch this goldfish go nuts. But I like to plant it. So when like saltwater people hide Chaetomorphia down in their sumps, I use it in the tank because it looks just like Java moss. And so I would use macroalgae and stuff, and that let me keep more things in a tank than normally would be suggested. You know, otherwise you're going to be a water change slave, and I hate mixing salt water. So yeah. Scuba Steve says, have I ever bought or sold Ultims? I haven't. I've actually never put my hands on an Ultim Angel. I tried to get some for a guy once, and the wholesaler said, well, the owner brings them in to kill them. Like he's got an obsession with them, and we bring in so many of them, and so many of them die, and he loses so much money. And that's why we don't sell them to stores, because we're already taking a beating on them. So unfortunately, I haven't really played with them yet. Destiny's Pet says, I have a 40-gallon tank running for 6 months. You've got 3 silver dollars, a pleco, 5 danios, 2 yo-yo loaches, and you do a 50% water change once a week. Recently started doing 50% water change every 3 days. Nitrates are high. Okay, so realize this, a lot of people have this problem, is they don't understand why they're doing lots of water changes. They've never missed a week, something like that, and they're still getting high nitrates. Well, if you make, let's say you make 50 nitrates a week, I'm going to pick a number, right? And you might say, well, I'm only making 20. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Let's say you're only making 20. If you change 50% of the water, you'll be at 10. But next week, you made 20 again. So now you're at 30, and you change 50%. You're at 15. The week after that, so week number 3, you get 20 nitrates. Now you're at 35. You change 50% of that. Now you're at 17.5. Week number 4, you're at 37.5. So even though you've never missed a water change, you do it 50% every time, the nitrates are still climbing. So that's why we have to test water and keep an eye on it, because if it does get where it's climbing like that, we might need to do 50% water changes 3 times in a row. Like, so 50% today, 50% tomorrow, 50% the day after, and then boom, we can get it real low again. And then it might take a few months to get high again. But especially in high load tanks, well, and I shouldn't say it's high load, you can just feed really heavy. If I have 1 goldfish, but I put a handful of food, it's the same as if I have 10 goldfish, but I put 1 handful of food. So you can cut back on food. You might be able to get some pothos growing up out of the tank or something like that to help soak up some nitrates, but be careful. It's bad for cats and dogs, I think. So that's how I answer that question. Have I ever owned any orange chromides? I personally haven't. I've sold them at a store a couple of times, but I haven't owned any. I have been wanting to play with some more of those Madagascar cichlids, though. What Pro Skater asks, what's the name of the stringy plants behind me? So I'm assuming we're talking about that one and that one. Those are Crinum calamastratum. They're one of the few plants that grow slow. And when I say slow, I mean like, so let's say you have this one, like just one of them. It's probably 8 years before you'd have another one, you know, so that's how slow it is. They're kind of like, I don't know, like heirloom plants almost, like, whoa, you've had that thing growing for so long. They're so cool. But yeah, it takes a long time to reproduce them. Wow, we're over 200 people. That's pretty good. Let's see here. I just skipped a bunch on accident. So if I missed you, just ask it again. Glad K3 asked, do I acclimate like Rachel O'Leary? If I remember right, she basically opens up, puts it through a net, and puts it in the tank. I do it the exact same way. Anyone who's touching a lot of fish is probably doing it that way, honestly. I can't speak for everyone, but most. Let's see here. Iowa's in the room. Great. My internet stalker has arrived. Do I like coolie loaches, Ginger asks. Heck yeah, they are cool. Justin asks if there's any theme tonight. The theme tonight is, let me see how many questions I can answer in an episode. And so hopefully someone that's watching this for the first time can count all these and let us know, because I'm not going to rewatch it and count them all, because I'm going to edit videos instead. But I would love to know, like, whoa, you did 212 questions or something. I have no idea. So can convicts live in a pH of 8.0? I don't think I've ever kept them at that, but I think they could. I bet you the answer to that is I just have to take a trip to a farm like in Florida. If they're not doctoring their water, they totally are breeding. I bet you they will. Let's see. Adam Till, what exactly happens to T5s as they age that increase algae? So what happens, and it's not just T5s. Let's talk about all of the old traditional lighting, which would be a T5, T8, T12, T3s, all those kind of things. Basically, they're filled with a gas, and every time we ignite that gas, it expends a little bit of the gas and changes the molecular, but basically changes the structure of that gas slightly each time we ignite it and the longer we run it. So over time, it's going to degrade in quality, and it's going to put out less light. Typically, between 9 and 12 months since the light was new, it'll put out about half as much light as it did when it was new. But we don't really visually see it, because every day it might be 1/100th less bright than it was the day before. So we don't notice it. But whenever you put a new bulb in there, you're going, wow, it's way brighter. And that's because it's twice as bright. So it's the gas that degrades on the inside is what causes maybe some algae problems. Because a lot of times, you know, let's say today you put in a brand new light, and a year from today you have that same light, but you're dosing my Easy Green. Today you have one pump with high lighting. A year from today, you put in one pump, but you have half as much lighting. So you might be growing algae from that. The fertilizer being too much for the light you have. All right, let me scroll down a bit here. How much salt is safe to use with plants when treating fish? Oof, not much. I would say like the medicinal, a tablespoon per 5, but in my opinion, that doesn't do a whole lot. Salt's pretty risky when you're talking about plants. Most expensive guppy strain, there's probably 20 different ones. It's mostly who's the most expensive guppy breeder. Like bringing in from ATFG, All Thailand Fancy Guppies, a lot of their strains are all the same price. So there we go. I gotta loosen my collar. I've been, you know, I keep it for work, you know, but now I'm off the clock. So, all right, let's move on. What is my beef with the Marineland BioWheel? Besides the worst filter ever designed, I would say the fact that the wheels stopped turning, the fact that the little things are going to spray water on, well, I guess that's, you know, it depends on the Penguin BioWheel. All of it's a scam. They claim it gases off ammonia and is much more efficient, but they don't stress to the people that buy it that, like, you have to float those BioWheels. Because, like, let's say you unplug that filter and, you know, to service it, in about a minute, you've killed all the bacteria that was on it. So I find it to be really gimmicky, and the wheels themselves aren't designed that well, and they collect a lot of garbage on them. So that's my main beef, is that they're selling something that is like the way it's designed, it's not going to work that well. And that's what I don't like about it. I mean, I feel like most people that own them say, yeah, those wheels stop spinning, it sucks, you know. And then on top of that, it's got a cartridge system, which even that is bad. So it's bad on top of bad, when you could have a hang-on back that's let's say an AquaClear, where you're putting sponges in there and bio rings and things like that, not nickel and dime yourself and having parts that don't work. So that's my beef with that. Justin says, Corey, what's a good plant for a carpet in hard water? Hard water carpeting plant, use Pogostemon helferi. It's a wicked cool looking plant, also sometimes called downoi, but it really likes hard water. Let's see. Can you use a dither fish like a school of tetras to get tiger stripes, silver dollars to school higher in the water column, 30-inch tall tank? I don't think you could use tetras to do it, like most of those tetras, because they're eventually just going to become food. You might be able to use something like an Exodon. What else could you use? Maybe like a Leperinus. What else? Maybe something territorial down at the bottom would do it. But I think small tetras are just going to end up being food, unfortunately. What's the best way to bring out color in your green terror? Well, give it time. Give it good food. You know, and if you can get it to eat things like brine shrimp spirulina and stuff like that are going to be color enhancers, natural color enhancers, and then change good water, and then make sure it's not getting dominated by another fish. No one wants to show their good colors if they're trying not to die. So, all right. Kevin asks, what fish do I sell that net the least profit per fish but high in demand, so I have to buy them? Discus. No doubt about it. Discus. I swear I lose money on every single one of them I sell. And I'm not even that bad at keeping them alive. I'm pretty good compared to most stores. It's just, you know, everyone doesn't want to pay the price. And then, like, I'm almost sad when I sell them because I'm like, oh, good, I get to order more. Like, that'll be great. I get to do a bunch of work to sell a fish that I barely make any money on. And a lot of times I lose money. And then part of the problem with losing the money here, product advertising for Dairy Gold here, is I have to put in the most work. Like, I have to really try and make sure this person's not going to kill it, because everyone that walks into a store goes, ooh, discus, those are pretty. What does it take to keep those? I want one. I'm not nearly ready for it, but they still want one. You're trying to talk them out of it. Sometimes they won't take no for an answer. And you literally get people like, it's my money. I can buy what I want. I can do what I want. And then I have to say, it's my store. I can sell to whoever I want. I'm not selling it to you. But they take the most work and they're the most headache, and they make me the least amount of money by far. Let's see here. Electric blue Acara with a large piece of waste sticking out of it. The fish won't swim around. It just sits on the bottom. Is that just a backup from overfeeding? How can I help my fish? Well, Andrew, I would say it could be what you totally described. Yes. Could also be maybe internal parasites. Yes. Could be a little bloat. Maybe it could mean that there's another fish dominating it. It doesn't want to swim around. But if I was trying to fix that scenario, I would do like a largest water change. It helps fish want to go to the bathroom. And make sure your nitrates aren't high, because most fish waste is through osmosis, which that means if there's less waste in the water than there is in the fish, it travels outside the fish into the water. If there's more waste outside in the water, the fish waste can't go out. And so that's what causes fish to bloat up and stuff a lot of times. So make sure your water quality is on point. Scrolling down a little more. Let's see. Oh, man, I'm missing stuff here. Tasteless says, sub me and sub you back. That will never happen ever. If you put out a good video and I stumble upon it, sure, but not doing anything like that. Any of the lighting suggestions for growing dwarf sag in a 90? So deeper tanks? I mean, really it just takes more light. Every 4 inches of depth you go in a tank, it takes twice as much light. So like, let's say you're growing dwarf sag really well on a 75 gallon and you jump up to the 90, which is 4 inches taller. It takes twice as much light to keep the same amount of light. So I actually just added more light on this because I was getting a little bit of algae in here. You can't really see it, but there's some brown a little bit on some of the crinum. And I know usually algae is an imbalance of nutrients and light. And so I actually added another, I can't see it, but I added another LED light on there, which is the ShopLight Costco lights. They put out a ton of light, not the color I like, but they're cheap. So I've got twice as much lighting as I just had, because I was thinking, you know, I'm only doing mostly low light stuff. But then I was like, well, it's easier the more light I have. So get more light, really. Let's see. Can you breed German blue rams and bristlenose in the same tank? You could, but the German blue rams are going to eat all of the pleco fry, and you'd have to leave the light on so the plecos don't eat the ram eggs at night. Let's see. So Iowa says some places discs are in huge demand. Not in my area, apparently, though. Oh, they're in plenty high demand. It's just they don't make any money. You know, the problem is, like, you can be one of two stores. You can be a store that's like, oh, look at this discus, it's $120, and you don't sell very many. Or you can be like me, where it's like, oh yeah, this discus is $40, and you sell them all the time. And a lot of stores will just go, well, let's up the price, and that way you don't have to deal with these people. But then now people think like, oh, this guy's just overpriced. What a jackass. So it's a real fine line between making yourself look bad and trying to save yourself work. I'm out of chocolate milk. So just so you guys know, discus people, I have the ability to work directly with Forest. You know, so Kenny's discus, all comes from Forest. I already buy stuff from Forest. I could totally just import really good quality discus. I can also get them from Hans, stuff like that. The problem is, in a pet store, people want cheap discus. They want everything cheaper. Rarely in the actual store do they want better quality. I force quality on them by going, oh, you're going to buy good quality and I'm going to get paid for it because I know they're better off for it. But the reality is most people want a fish. You know, let's say I want a Jack Dempsey. They want it as cheap as they can. They don't want the best looking Jack Dempsey. They want the one that was $2. And so I just don't like playing with discus because there's not enough money in it compared to everything else. So it's the least money making for me. David's fish tank says, if you get 2 hours of sunlight on your tank, is that bad? No, I wouldn't say it's bad. I would say just utilize it. So if you know you're going to get extra light in those 2 hours, you could A, have your light kick off. B, you could maybe pump up the fertilizer to make sure it's utilizing it. But if it's relatively stable, it's just a parameter you get to deal with. Let's see here. I've read that. Uh-oh, where'd that go? I lost it. I scrolled down. Nothing I can do. Nothing I can do. Missed it. Can convicts fire mouse go into a planet tank without uprooting everything like Oscars? No. Chance, they're gonna do it eventually. Like if you could put all the plants on wood, just like I did with these goldfish, that would work. But they're gonna dig as soon as they start breeding for sure. What's my live stream viewer count record? With John, it was like 251, I think. So, share this out. You can get us up more. Man, I got like phlegm going on from drinking chocolate milk. Hold on here. Sorry about that. Let's see here. If there are low light plants up high, Java fern on wood, and highlight plants deep, is there a risk of growing algae at the top of plants with deep light? Yeah, you can also burn like a Java moss and stuff like that. So, while rare, you can give so much light that you literally burn a plant too. How do you sex a green terror, and where do you think the best place to find them are? I mean, your local store really would be the best place, in my opinion. As far as sexing them goes, I'd watch them in the tank just to observe their behavior, because you're not going to be able to like vent them in the store. They're not going to allow that. So I would say just go on behavior. So if you find a dominant male beating on everyone, he's a male. If you find that he's beating on everyone in the tank except for one other fish, that's a female pretty much. So I would go with that. Let's see here. Is it a good idea to keep native fish? Depends on the fish, where you're located, and if it's legal. Whether it's a good idea, maybe. Like right now, it'd be a really good idea for someone like me or other breeders in the state to get a hold of the Olympic mud minnow. It's a rad-looking fish. It's illegal for anyone to collect it, and yet it's going to go extinct because of the habitat. So in that idea, that one might be a great idea. But, otherwise, whether it's a good idea is whether you want to keep it or not and whether it's legal for you. Andrew says he did 80% water change today. As you change your gravel from an ugly blue to black rocks, hopefully that helps. I would say definitely watch out for an ammonia spike now, because a lot of bacteria was on that gravel and you just swapped that out. So, maybe since you've got this guy not feeling so well anyway, go ahead and do like another 30 to 50% water change tomorrow and the next day. Just stay really ahead of it and keep clean water and see if that won't help him. And it'll help make sure you don't run into ammonia problems either. Let's see here. I'm just scrolling down here. Yeah, I'm so many people in the chat, scrolling pretty quick. I'll keep up as much as I can. Ask it if it goes by too long. Corey, do I do dips of nitrofurazin green to treat fin rot? I don't. I typically for fin rot only use erythromycin. Want Madagascar leaf, do I need CO2? If you buy it from me, I buy the Western Madagascar lace plants. They don't require CO2. It's super duper easy to grow. Some of the other Madagascar lace from different collection points do need CO2. Roshan says, what's the cheapest light to grow corals? While I'm not a saltwater focused channel, I would say it depends on the coral. If we're talking like Kenya trees and stuff, buy one of these like LED shop lights. You're going to grow a lot of stuff. If you're really starting to grow not hammerhead. Is it hammerhead corals and stuff like that? Hammer corals. Some of that stuff's going to need a lot of light. But if you're going for cheapest and just like Kenya trees and stuff like that, you could do a shop light. So here's my thing about lighting. People always go, how strong of a light do I need? Do this. Go type in like 1970s saltwater tank and realize they're running T12 lights, and then look at the like mushroom corals and stuff they're growing, and you'll see how low of light you could use. So most lights in today's standards are way better than that. So mostly people blame lighting. It's usually skill that we don't have. And I'm the same way, Adam says, can you use nitrate levels or something testable to help dial in ferts? Yeah, you totally can. Like that's what I do basically with my Easy Green is when you run out of nitrogen, if you're running out, like let's say you dose it on a Monday and you run out by Thursday, okay, I'm not going to do water change again until Monday. I'm basically probably need to double this and start doing it twice a week or something like that. But yeah, it's a pretty good way to do it in my opinion. How big do mollyfish get? Saw a swordtail about 8 inches. Do they get the same? I would say an 8-inch swordtail doesn't exist. They can never even get a picture of a 6-inch one. But yes, they do get large. You can get, I've seen them about 5 to maybe 6 inches for mollies from Charles Clapsaddle, and everyone agrees he's made the biggest ones ever. But yeah, even Montezuma swords and things like that don't hit 8 inches. Like the fish itself might hit 3.5, and the tail might be 3. but they've never been able to produce a picture of one that big. I want to help this guy if I can. Brian says he's got sick guppies, curved backs, lethargic, not eating. They sit on the bottom, can barely swim. Help. Where'd you get them from? If you got them from a chain store, they were raised in brackish water and they're just going to die. You don't really have a chance. If they weren't, they might be true freshwater guppies. In that case, look at water parameters. Make sure you've got at least 7.2 pH at least. And then also, they got to have a lot of calcium in that water. And overall, just look at them for disease as well. Austin says, thinking of getting a 50 to 100 gallon tank. Any good large aggressive cichlid or any other fish tips? Also thinking of putting a green terror in a 40 breeder. Do you think that'll work? Yeah, green terror in a 40 will be fine. Large cichlid for a 100 gallon. It depends on the front to back depth. If you're at 18 inches, you could do a decent amount, that stay in that 16 inch range. You just have to do some research and see what you like. Is there any way to private message? Not on here. There's not. You could send me an email to my store's website. Phoenix Planet Plus 24/7 on 18-inch cube. High, medium, or low light? That's kind of an interesting question. Right where the light is, like the 1 foot underneath it, is probably high light. But if you put that light in the middle, the corners are going to be kind of more of a medium light. What is the best quality aquarium brand? Well, considering that Aqueon, Marineland, and Tetra are all owned by the same company, they're all the same. I would say maybe some local independent manufacturers. That's who I trust the most. What type of plants would be good to use with cracodons in a 29 gallon with a Beamworks LED? I would say like Anubias, Java ferns, stuff like that. The trick you want to be careful with that Beamworks light is it puts out a lot of heat, and cracodons don't like heat. So make sure that you don't heat that water up with that LED. Make sure it stays well under like 76, 74 if you could. Let's see. Tardis asks, will goldfish continue to swim after death? Trying to hold out hope. They won't swim, so to speak, after death, but they can come back alive. Like when you put a fish under to sedate them, you would swear they're not alive, and they can still come back from it. So like if you think a fish is dead and it's not really doing well, the best thing you could do would be forcing water over its gills. So take like a power head and put it in its mouth and flow water and get oxygen. It's kind of like performing CPR. That's your best chance if you're trying to revive or keep a fish around. David asks, what's my opinion on using carbon in a planted tank? I wouldn't do it. It's going to soak up fertilizers and things like that. You'd be much better off using Purigen or nothing at all. Either one of those, or like a phosphate absorber, maybe if you're having algae issues. But, honestly, carbon's working against you there. Let's see here. Decembri asks, my puffer in the stores, is it freshwater, salt, and I have guppies in there. What pH do I maintain in there? So I maintain 7.2 pH, and it's a freshwater puffer. All I do is freshwater all the time. That's all I do. Justin says, I know about crushed coral and limestone, but is there any other ways to raise pH and calcium? To raise pH, you could use baking soda if you want. A little bit goes a very long way. Be very careful. And adding calcium, you can use things like wonder shells. We sell them on the website. You could use plaster of Paris blocks. They'll do that for ponds sometimes. But it comes down to, is there other ways? Yes, there's a billion other ways. But then it comes down to like what's easy to do. And a lot of times crushed coral and limestone is just the easiest for sure. Jay asks, can you mix cichlids with big black mollies? I think it depends on the cichlid, right? Like if you're talking apistogrammas, yeah, probably. But know that mollies want harder water. If you're talking about Africans, you could probably do like shell dwellers, probably a lot of the Tanganicans, whereas the Mbuna is probably just going to beat on them. All right. Corey, do we have to use priority mail on my website? Yes, you do. That's the only way I'm going to ship because, yeah, they pick up from me, and I'm already shipping so many packages that it's pretty much that way or the highway until I negotiate a contract with FedEx and UPS, which usually you have to pay about $60,000 in shipping fees a year to negotiate with them. That's how we're doing it, because flat rate is the only thing that makes sense when you're shipping stuff as a small business. Also, is the snapetail catfish hard to breed? I don't know what a snapetail catfish is. That's a local pet store name. Never heard of it. So either need a scientific name or a different common name, but I've never heard of snapetail. How long does it take a green terror to reach maturity and gain color? Because yours is 4.5 inches and the water parameters are perfect, but it still doesn't have much color. At least 2 years. How do snails show up in a cichlid tank? All my substrate is a month old and was new. I have no plants either. Just not sure how they keep showing up. You probably bought a cichlid and it pooped out some snail eggs, and there you got it. Like, it's, I don't understand why the internet hates snails so much. They're so beneficial. Like, I never want to keep an aquarium that doesn't have snails. In fact, I'm sad I don't have snails back here because it'll choke my my goldfish. I would love to have Nitrate snails. I might do some Japanese trapdoor snails, but I don't get it why people don't want them. I want them in every aquarium I ever own for sure. Let's see. Is it possible to keep blackworms alive out of the fridge? It is technically possible, but no, what you're up against is not temperature, it's oxygen. And they run out of oxygen really fast. So think of it this way. Here's the way to wrap your brain around it. Let's say you have a pound of blackworms. Imagine you were going to keep a pound of tetras. Now, a pound of tetras might be 150 neon tetras. Set up for that. So you're like, oh, I need to keep 150 neon tetras alive? Guess what? You're thinking, oh, I need a 55-gallon aquarium with lots of good filtration and stuff like that. That's what you need to keep a pound of blackworms alive outside of a fridge. Otherwise, you put them in the fridge, slow their metabolism down, make it so they don't need as much. That's how you do it. How do I feel about hybrid fish? You love your 12-inch flower horn. I feel just fine about them. Flower horns are cool. Scroll down a little bit here. Hopefully I don't miss everything. Screw it. It scrolled all the way down. Lace, it doesn't need CO2. Just when I filled my highlight. Yeah, it's just the Western Madagascar lace. Look it up. Plant tank cycle is normal, or can you add stuff right away? I add stuff right away because your plants are going to grow right away. And then, you know, they're going to uptake the nitrogen and the ammonia they produce. So I add a light load right away. Justin says, I just made a similar cage to what you did with the pot looking for a plant on top. What else would be good? Java ferns, Anubiases, Bucephalandras. Those are going to be the main ones that you could put up there. What would cause TDS to steadily increase each day? Well, it's total dissolved solids. If you feed each day, that's going to raise it. If you have crushed coral dissolving or something like that in the water, that'll raise it. But almost anything will help raise it every day, yeah. Let's see here. Do snails need a plant tank? No, they can live without plants. It's beneficial to them for sure, but no, snails are awesome. Kevin asked, how many pounds of blackworms at a time do you order and how much is the cost? Well, I can't tell you the cost because that could compromise some of my competitors and stuff like that, and I never want to hurt other independent stores. But I'll tell you this. I order 15 pounds every week pretty much for my store, and it's not that cheap because I get them sent by the airport. Most stores are going to get them sent by FedEx because California blackworms will only ship FedEx. They're like me. I'm lazy, right? Like I only want to ship priority. But when worms sit on the back of a FedEx truck all day long, they get really gross and soupy and a lot of bacteria starts growing on them. So I pay a fish wholesaler to go to California blackworms, get me 15 pounds and ship them to me. Then I pay the airport fees, but I also had to buy fish off them, and they're not that good at fish. So like if they want to give me blackworms, for dang sure I would never order a fish from them, but I have to kind of pay them to do that. And so I got to order fish on top of that to make it worth their while. And so that's what it takes to get good blackworms. Is it possible to have way too much light on a planet aquarium, specifically Bucephalandra species? Julian, definitely. Bucephalandras take very little light. I flower them in such low light. Think of them as an Anubias. Think of them, treat them exactly like you would treat Anubias nana petite. And you know how low light those can go. That's exactly what Buces want. Any tips for mystery snails? Feed them tons of calcium. Keep the pH above 7.5. And make sure the stuff's not ripping off their antennas. What's the best snail to keep in an unplanted large cichlid tank? Probably the rabbit pothos Tylonesian rabbit snail. I know that was a mouthful. Look it up. It's kind of like a Malaysian trumpet snail. It's huge. That's probably the best one because they really love that harder water. My wife must be asking a question someone else is asking me. What's the big plant behind me? It is the Crinum calmastratum. It is a highlight plant, or at least medium for sure, and very slow grower. Taylor Lindbergh says, do we sell plants online? We totally do. I'll do a screen share and shamelessly plug my own crap here. But if we go, let's see if I can pull something up here. Let's go here. We're going to share a page. Let me get over there so I can actually do some stuff here. Is this it? Yeah. So if you were to go here, browse products, live plants right here. Oh, it did start doing that. Okay, cool. I've been working on trying to sort it out a little more for you guys. But like the other plants thing, I don't think is working. Yeah, it's working a little bit, but there's a few more plants that should be on this other plants list. But yeah, I've started to break it down for you guys. Here's bulb plants, stuff like that. So yeah, I do. I don't sell all the plants I sell in the store. You can email me privately and we could talk about that. But I am trying to slowly work up and make sure that it works correctly. I also added substrate. A couple people are asking. They want that Cenex sand. If you can't get it locally, we will ship it to you. But realize there's an extra surcharge, basically. Like you're thinking, who's going to pay $31 for 20 pounds of sand or $56 for 40 pounds of sand? The problem is the shipping. Like to ship 40 pounds of sand is quite a bit. And I have to use 2 large flat rate boxes. So it's, don't judge me going, this guy's crazy. He's charging how much? Realize I'm trying to help people. And, otherwise I tell you guys, it's Cenex sand. I tell you where to buy it, your local gravel yard, that kind of stuff. People have called around. They can't find it, trying to help them. But yeah, we do sell stuff online, and everything you buy basically directly helps me do more stuff like this. So it's a win-win. Let me get back out of this here. If I hit stop, perfect. I'm back. Back to questions. I guess I just answered another one. The next question right after that was, hey, Corey, what type of substrate would I use in a high-tech planted aquarium? I personally would use that super sand I just mentioned. If you want to waste money, you could buy like an ADA soil or something like that as well. But honestly, I would use whatever I had on hand personally. I don't like to spend money on substrates because most plants are water column feeders. Adam says, is there ever a place for dosing acid to keep pH low rather than using hard-to-predict botanicals? Assume low pH RO water for acidic fish. Is there ever a place? Yes, probably. That being said, I haven't done it. Like I haven't really used vinegar and stuff like that to further drop pH, so I'm not well versed in it. Bite your eel tank mates. I'm guessing you're talking about like Polypterus. Mostly things that don't fit in their mouth. They're kind of just an ambush predator, and they only want to eat what fits in their mouth, so bigger things. Michael Bradley asks, where can I find erythromycin in bulk? Maybe on my website soon. The wholesalers sold out of like the 2-pound containers, but I'm thinking about bringing in some extras if people want to buy them off me because I'm finding it's not that easy for people to find sometimes. Mr. Slughorn keeps goldfish in bowls for science. Is that okay in my opinion, Corey? Sure. Because if he's actually using it for science, like actually, then yes, we're learning from it. Anytime we're learning, I feel like that's good. If we're just doing it for the sake of doing it, I'm kind of against that. But if we're literally using it to teach, like let's say I had a goldfish in a bowl and I was doing videos on it each week to teach you guys like what was going wrong with it, I feel like that's okay because I'm actually using it to educate. But if I just had it on my desk over here and I was using it for science, quote unquote, I'm not okay with that. And I wasn't actually trying to teach anyone. What is the easiest way to breed Apistogrammas? Mostly get a pair in a tank, start with Cockatoides. They're easier. You can see some of my videos. I've spawned a couple of them out there. But get a pair, keep them happy, feed them well. Don't over protein them. That's where you usually bloat them. But keep them warm too. Keep them about 82. My favorite Geophagus is Jurapari, but I also like to spawn the red humps. And I like the Maponitis as well. I never spawned those. I tried, but I never got the Maponitis to spawn. Chewy says, how would I go about using ether grass with my guppies trying to breed? Any other tips on breeding guppies? Watch my videos on breeding guppies. Pretty much every video I ever put out has got a little bit of info about guppies, but the Easter grass is literally just cover for them, and you literally just take it you buy it all when it's super on sale after Easter, and it's like 17 cents a bag, and you can just throw it away when you're tired of it. Let's see. I'm missing people right and left. Yeah, if that snape-tail catfish is a red-tail catfish, I don't remember what the original question was, like how to keep one. Their answer is don't keep one. You can't afford a 4-foot catfish. Let's see here. There's a debate to whether softwater fish actually need low TDS versus low pH and be healthy. What's my weigh-in on that? Well, I would say they like low pH. Most fish actually want more TDS for bone growth and things like that. A lot of times people tend to, like, you might say like, oh, well, discus want really low TDS in the water to breed. Yes, but the other half of the year, they actually have quite high TDS when it's not the rainy season and they're not breeding. So I would say any generalization like that, this can't be right. Man, I've already answered that question. What would cause TDS to raise each day? And that was feeding, stuff leaching into the water. Pretty much your TDS probably should raise each day or rise. Justin says, Corey, how many Planet Plus stingrays would it take to get high light on a 55-gallon? It would probably take 2, like 24/7 in the front, or a Planet Plus in the front, and a stingray in the back, with the thinking that you'll have taller plants in the back and they won't need quite as much light. Chewy said, should I just rinse the Easter grass and throw it in? Yep, exactly. Give it a quick rinse. Henry asked, how do you care for plecos? It depends on what pleco, Henry, but mostly you just got to feed them a ton. They like to eat a lot. And they're nocturnal, so feed them after the light goes out. What's the craziest tank you've heard of a customer attempting to keep? Like crazy fish combos, big fish, small fish, etc. Pretty much everything. You know, the biggest pet peeve of mine is everyone says like, well, it's been working fine for a year, so clearly it's okay. But I would say things like I'm trying to think. It's probably fancy goldfish. It's like, I swear fancy goldfish has been kept with everything, whether it's a, oh, it's in my Frontosa tank, or, oh, it's in my Arowana tank. Like, people just throw them with everything, and then when they die, they just buy new ones. Best source for a pressurized CO2 system, what's reasonable to spend? You're probably going to spend $250 to get something actually set up if you're doing like a 5-pound cylinder. Buy the regulator and stuff like that on Amazon or a local store if you have one, and then get the tank itself from a welding shop. Let's see. Can I keep small tetras like black neons or neons with bettas? It depends on the betta itself. It could be, really docile and be fine. It could also be very aggressive. You have to test it and have a backup plan. Zachary says, dark green, black algae on leaves in a planted tank, dosing CO2 for its 12 hours of light a day. Any ideas on how to get rid of it? It's melting leaves. You're probably just imbalanced. So dosing CO2, if you're dosing Excel, that's not CO2. If you're injecting it, that is CO2, but CO2 doesn't fix algae. Everyone says it does, but everyone's wrong. Because everyone always goes, yeah, I put CO2 on the tank, didn't help my algae at all. I would say 12 hours of light, cut that back to 10, see how that treats you for a while. And then depending on the plant, you could try some hydrogen peroxide to watch the video. There's a video coming out this Friday coming up. Yeah, 5 days from now or whatever. It's Bob's Fish Room, and he's dosing some hydrogen peroxide to take care of some blackbeard algae and stuff. But also, I want to make sure that dark green / black algae, it's not just blue-green algae. That would be a bacterial infection in the tank, actually, but I'd have to see pictures to know. You should only test TDS from an RO unit. That's not true, Cody. I test TDS on water all the time. It helps you measure things you can't test for with a normal kit. Are cardinal tetras hardier than neons? I wouldn't say they're any hardier or less. Let's see. Corey, there's this new fish basically related to a severum. I think it's GMO. Are GMO fish okay with you, Corey? How do I feel about glowfish? Kind of covered that to death already. I'm against glowfish, just not because they're modified, but because they are so inbred and weak. Let's see. Vilfred says, I'm new to the aquarium hobby and really like cichlids. Are they easy to keep or should I start with something easier? For the most part, cichlids in general are going to be the easiest. S&M Gaming, can you keep crabs as a pet? You can. Most crabs want to get up out of the water a bit, though, so build them a land area. GLA macro ferts keep melting my crypts. Too much Epsom salt? Maybe, but Epsom salt doesn't really have NaCl in it, so that wouldn't really cause them to melt. It's just magnesium, straight up. I hesitate to say that it's melting it. Did you have them not melting before you started dosing that fertilizer, or they're just melting on you right now? Tank behind me is like 170 gallons with a 30-gallon sump, roughly. Some tank. What is better, acrylic or glass? Acrylic, in my opinion. Asking for a friend. She wants a betta sorority tank. If she were to get 10 to 15-gallon tank with filter, etc., how could she expect it to keep? At least 6 of them. Otherwise, they're going to beat each other down and kill each other. So at least 6 when you're doing a female sorority tank. Have I ever tried a cylindrical type CO2 reactor? Yes. Adam, I finally got auto fry after a year of various experiments. That's pretty awesome. Not a lot of people can say that. Any suggestions on how to make that more reliable? Why does the hobby refuse to recognize the different auto species? Mostly because most of the country, as I say, are cichlid idiots. If it's not a cichlid, they don't care about it. So yeah, while there's bumblebee autos, there's vampire autos, there's zebra autos, there's a ton of them, right? But if your water structure doesn't lend itself well to it, and all you're doing is African cichlids, you just don't care about it, you know? So it might be like me saying all birds are the same. It's not that they are, it's just I don't know a lot about birds, you know? And I wouldn't say that because I know enough to know that, oh, that must be very different. But there's a lot of people that don't know that kind of stuff. John Zim says, I'm looking for a dense 1-inch tall grass to cover the entire bottom without a lot of trimming. Oof, any suggestions? I don't know about a grass, but if you did Marsilia minuta, it grows pretty slow, wouldn't require a lot of trimming. Sebastian asks, recommendations on guppy strains, online vendors. Buy on Aquabid. That's pretty much the best place to get them right now. You can try messaging people on YouTube, but a lot of times they just don't have the stock levels or the strains you're looking for. Airhawk says, considering New Life Spectrum, I would guess it was a temporary holding spot or has been a long time. I don't know what that means. What's the best light for plants in a 55-gallon tank? In my opinion, your best bang for the buck is currently a Phoenix Planted Plus. Raymond asks, can I use neon tetras as a ditherfish to breed your apistogrammas, or should I use pencilfish as a ditherfish? You could use neons. I find it's best to use a fish that stays up top, like a pencilfish or a hatchet fish. So that way, when the fry hatch out, tetras will be snacking on them. But otherwise, yeah, it'll work. But you realize you'll lose some fry. Best way to cool a pond with Texas heat: move away from Texas. Otherwise, shade it, do cool water changes at night, that type of thing. I think I've hit some of those. I'm just going to scroll down here. Kevin, I'm interested in buying plants from you, but don't want immersed growth. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Pretty much no one sells submerged grown plants. Like, I try to convert them as much as I can, but anyone that is either A, doesn't sell very many plants and could actually do that, or B, is lying to you. So, the problem is, like, you might go, well, I want a Anubias. And it's like, okay, you want a Anubias Nana? I sell 100 plus a week. Like, no one can convert that. So if someone is, they're either small time, or B, they're lying to you. And things like an Anubias, they don't even like converting. It doesn't even really go through a converting process. So let's see. What size tank for 3 red belly piranhas? Probably like a 55. They're a pretty active fish. Let's see here. Oh, man, I'm falling behind. Oh, wait, maybe not. Yes, Chewy, I answered that already. You rinse the Easter grass and just throw it in. Yep. What's the most difficult fish I've ever kept? Scuba Steve asks. Most difficult. If I had to guess, it was the clouded archer fish, which those are the ones from the Burmese clouded archer fish. They were brand new to the hobby probably 2-3 years ago. Not a lot of info was on them. Those were pretty difficult. But no, okay, that wasn't the hardest. The hardest was the freshwater pipefish. So I had to hatch live baby brine out every single day to feed them. That was a real pain. Because you also can't keep them with any other fish because they outcompeted by every single fish in the tank. Like if you have 5 neon tetras in the tank, those pipefish will never get to eat. What was my first and my favorite fish that I had? My first fish ever was penguin tetras, or hockey stick tetras as they're called. And my favorite fish I've ever had would be my Mabu puffer Hank that passed away. What is the minimum size tank you would put a cichlid in? You have a 10-gallon so far. If that's too small, bigger tank. Bigger tanks are always better. Know that. There are some cichlids you can put in a 10-gallon, but I feel like recommending that to a beginner is just not a good idea. Have I read anything about vinegar dosing to help maintain healthy bacteria growth similar to vodka in salt water? I've done a little bit of reading, but the problem is the internet's full of crap, and you never know what's true, and that's why I always got to test things for myself, and I haven't tested it for myself, but I do know this. Instead of using vinegar, it's actually better to use very tiny amounts of sugar if you're trying to keep healthy bacteria. That's Tetra Safe Start is sugar and water, just so you know. Like that's why that product is terrible, because they're telling you it's live bacteria. It's actually just sugar and water. How do I heal a black gill in a betta? I don't know. I mean, I don't really know black gill is a disease. They can have just black gills. I mean, did he go through an ammonia burn and his gills died out? Or I'd have to know more. Renan says, will you breed trout goodeids? If so, will they be in the store? If so, when? I've had them in the store before. They didn't sell terribly quickly, but yeah, some will find their way into the store eventually. I just don't know when. Honestly, we're probably a year out from having enough that I want, and then I can bring them into the store. Why have vortex filters fallen out of fashion? Mostly because they're labor intensive, and we can use things like filter socks and micron cartridges now instead of having to use a diatom powder. Chance King says, do I have an opinion on API? Yes. Is there a particular product? I mean, that's a pretty wide range of products. Pretty much every vendor out there has absolute crap and really good stuff. So what is the best online fish store? If I had to pick one that was shipping fish currently, it'd be the Wet Spot. Even though they're my competitor down in Oregon, I would pick the Wet Spot if I had to pick one. What would it cost if I were to send you pictures of said algae and get your advice? I would certainly compensate you for time information. Zachary, it wouldn't cost you anything. Send me an email. I'll give you a quick response. And then usually with that kind of transaction, I just hope that like if you need something like erythromycin, you just buy it from me instead of someone else. But I don't charge to give out information. I just hope that overall in the bigger picture of things, it makes sense. Tim asks, have I tested new algae yet? I have not. I've never tested it. I tried to get hooked up with that company and test some things and do some things. They just made my life hard. Like they just were not easy to work with. And so I just haven't. Can you keep freshwater lobsters with 4-inch koi? I don't recommend it. And I'm assuming you mean crayfish, and it's just a matter of time until it's a problem. How is the tank in your house coming along? The one in my living room? Hasn't really come along much yet. We got the cancer filter hooked up, but it's mostly on Dorcula to go pick fish. I said she can come to my store. We can go to other stores. So if you want to see something happen in that tank, yell at her. Let's see. Crowntail betta, his gills are black on the tips, and he's really healthy. I would say it's not a problem then. Like if he's healthy, if he ain't thriving, or I mean, if he ain't dying, he's thriving, right? So if he looks good, he probably is good. He might just have a little black pigment on there. When growing job moss on stainless steel mesh, why not plastic needlepoint canvas? The only reason why they don't use plastic is the plastic floats and the mesh sinks. That's the only reason. So, like if you're doing a moss wall, use the plastic mesh. Yeah, you're just gonna use suction cups to attach it anyway. Let's see here. How do I tell if a swordtail is pregnant? It's gonna swell up. Its black gravid spot will get bigger, and usually it'll get a little more boxy right before birth. And it'll happen about every 28 to 32 days. What's the difference between freeze-dried and frozen foods? Not a whole lot. One's basically hydrated and one isn't. They're pretty similar. Most times, though, freeze-dried foods will float pretty much forever, whereas frozen foods tend to sink. So that's one of the big differences. Mango Megan says, do I have any blue ram's horn snails for sale? I've got some in the fish room, but I don't think I really have any in the store, no. Do I have any tips for curving aggression with angelfish? My angelfish were breeding, but 2 months later turned on the female, saved her, but would like to try to successfully introduce together. Turn the temperature down. Get it down to like 73 degrees so they're not in breeding temperatures, and that'll cut down a lot on the aggression. Let's see here. The only people that say the internet is crap is mass media, or people that haven't been much on the internet. Like, go research. Pick any topic. Go research for an hour about Hikari syncing Excel, and then come back to me and tell me you didn't have 15 different opinions and there's no conclusive evidence. And then tell me that the internet isn't, a waste of time on a lot of things. Have I heard of narglefish out of South America? I have not, so I don't plan on selling them. Do more unboxing videos. Yes, definitely will once it's better season to do it. I might film this Wednesday, maybe. It's really hard to film in the store when I'm unpacking that shipment, though, but I did order some cool stuff. I'll see if I can pull it off. Let's see here. Good tank size for a Dovi. Full grown, probably at least a 180, at least, Otherwise, whatever tank you've got while you're growing it up. But I would say minimum 2 foot front to back depth, minimum. Chance King asks, what's my experience with malachite green? I've never used just malachite green. I've used methylene blue a lot, but not malachite green because it's harsh on stuff from what I know. You have a guppy that was very active but is now very inactive and seems to have a bit of a swollen belly, seems to hide beneath the outlet of the hang-on back. 55-gallon ring since May. Test water parameters, that's what I would say. More fish unboxing questions. There's a question I wanted to ask or answer. Down below 200 people. Uh-oh, you guys aren't doing your job. How did I get the bins that you have in your koi inside my fish room? I have giant wide opening doors, like 8 foot wide doors on this room next to me and then my garage too. So basically everything can fit 8 feet through it. What state am I in? We're in Washington. How do I keep 15 pounds of blackworms alive for a long time? Rinse every day, shallow containers. Nope, that's exactly how we do it. Iowa, we have 2 fridges at the store. We rinse them every single day, and we keep them in shallow containers and keep them cold. Yeah, it's a lot of work. That the secret is shocking, a lot of work. That's how we do everything in our businesses. Just do the work. Most stores and stuff like that won't do the work. I don't know what your real first question was, Iowa, so I'll answer that question. We are in Washington. He's Seattle. I'm Spokane. Yep. Does the inch to gallon rule work for arowana? Not only does it not work for an arowana, it doesn't work for any fish on the planet. It's a bad rule. Let's see here. Thoughts on dwarf neon rainbow fish? How are they in a community aquarium? They tend to be pretty good. They get about 2.5 inches. They're real quick to the food, but otherwise pretty good. Yeah. Your Endler guppies are dealing from Crucio disease. I don't know that disease. That's a word I don't know. So I can't help you treat it till I understand what the disease is. Am I breeding any killie? Am I going to breed any killie fish? Probably. I'm not that big of a killie guy. Like, I've done Norman Lampi killies, I've done clown killies, I've done blue galaris, I've done gardener eye, but I don't know. I'm just not huge on them for some reason. Should you separate a pregnant molly from the males? My mollies seem to be dying. Maybe. You definitely want to have way more females than you do males, otherwise you get harassed to death. Biggest fish I've ever kept besides the koi or Hank? Probably, like, I had a 2-foot Pangasius. I've had 20-inch like Terrashukan cat and giraffe catfish, stuff like that, probably kind of in the 20-inch mark. Would I ever consider a live stream cam at my store? I used to have one, actually. Like, it didn't really work that well because the resolution's okay, right? But it wasn't talking and stuff like that. So I used to have a camera just on my big guppy tank. But with the guppies, they're not very big. And then my puffer is not that big yet, so it's not even that easy to see. Jose says, do you put together plant packages, like a 55-gallon plant package, to be able to plant heavily from the beginning? I do. You'd have to email me. And what you would end up doing is you would, like, PayPal me in a set of money. Like, let's say you say, I want to spend this amount of money. I would get you the most bang for your buck with that money. But that's actually what we ended up doing for John at KG Tropicals. He just sent me money and was like, look, I just need you to send me what's really going to work. So Banana Killer says, how do I keep your goldfish from dying? Well, stop killing bananas. That's the first thing. And then, that's a pretty open-ended question. So we'd have to look at water parameters, but mostly it's a water parameter thing. And you should have at least 20 to 30 gallons per goldfish. If you're not going by that metric, that could be why you're having some problems. How big do German blue rams get? About 3.5 inches or so, asks Henry. Are splash tetras good community fish in a Corey Brocas heavy tank? Yeah, Adam, I've kept them. They're pretty cool fish, actually. I like those quite a bit. What do you prefer to deworm fish with internal parasites, especially ones straight from the wild? General Cure. I saw it on my website. Praziquantel or Prazipro works okay too. Ken wishes I'd open a second store in Spokane. I would totally open one in Spokane if I wanted to lose money. There's not enough population density over there to support a store like me, unfortunately. What happened to the giant fish you were speaking of? Where did they go? Mostly I donated those to a different pet store when I moved. So I knew, basically when I knew I was moving and then opening a store, I knew I wasn't going to have time for all these crazy big tanks at home. And I wanted to focus on the business. And then I knew I could get that stuff back, which I have now. I'm kind of setting back up, but I really wanted to make sure the business didn't fail. I missed some questions here. I'm going to scroll up. Raymond asks, what's my favorite fish that I've ever bred? Probably guppies. I mean, I just love guppies to death. I'm trying to think if there's another fish where I'm like, oh man, those fry are sweet. I like raising Crobensis fry a lot, even though they're not really worth any money. Justin says, why are killifish not usually available in fish stores? Because they don't go in community tanks. And so they usually have to go in their own tank. They can't be warm. They take extra care. They might even take live food or frozen food at least. And you spend all day talking to people on how this fish is really colorful and how they can't keep it. How come farlowallas aren't more popular as an algae eater? I think they're mostly not popular just because they don't go well with cichlids, like African cichlids and stuff. So they're not in a lot of stores. Like I have a few different types of farlowallas in my store right now. Do I sell killifish? I do. I think right now I've got Norman lampi killies, some Gertrudes, some, what is it? Not the red neon killie, but I've got like one or two more. I think I've got some orange Australs, stuff like that. I've heard the inch per gallon. Is that a good rule? No, it's not. And or what would I recommend? I'd recommend testing your water, but 15 1-inch neon tetras and a 15-inch Oscar are not the same by any means. Man, this guy is like the king of asking questions that I'm not going to know the answer to. Like the Avada Kedavata light, I've never heard of it. So I have no idea if it'll be good at growing Riccia, which Riccia is not a moss, by the way. It's a floating plant. And Monte Carlo. So I don't know that light, so I can't know. And even if I did know that light, you didn't tell me how tall the tank was, so that doesn't let me know if the light's strong enough. Let's see here. How's the Dovai? He's doing just fine. I actually moved him in. He was being really scared, so I moved him in with the fire mouse, and he's eating way better now. And once he starts beating on them, I'll take him back out. I can never get used to living longer than a year, they would just waste away sucking the stuff no matter what you did. You probably need to deworm them if you're having troubles, Mango. Deworming, they're very, very common. Internal parasites, tapeworms. Any ideas? Let's see here. Oh, I keep scrolling past crap. What's the best 3 selling fish in my store and best selling shrimp? The best selling shrimp is a mono shrimp, but if you're asking for one you could breed, it would be cherry shrimp by far. Best 3 selling fish, I could pull up the stats, but without needing to, it's probably cardinal tetra, rummy nose tetra, and then I'm sure it's then probably fancy guppy, actually. Maybe, because I love them a lot, and so I push them a lot. Aquarium Boy, you just joined? Oh, man, you missed so much cool crap. Like, you should feel bad about yourself at this point. You're going to have to rewatch it, and you're going to go, oh, man, that was so cool. Or not. You just rewatch it, and it was all right. What's the easiest way to start a planted aquarium? First, go watch the KG Tropical video I did today. But otherwise, I'm going to put out some videos on, I'm going to show you guys how I plant tanks and do some more stuff like that. I'm going to focus on that a little more because I feel like I've done a lot of stuff. I'm at 250 videos at this point, and I've never shown you guys how I start a planted tank. So I feel like I should do that because I love plants a lot. I should do it. Mostly I've been waiting because I haven't really set up many tanks here that I want to plant yet, but I do now. Have I ever heard of freeze-dried foods harboring parasites, pathogens, etc.? Javier, it can technically happen. It's less likely than a frozen food is, and it's much less likely than a live food. But you got to remember, it's kind of a good and bad scenario. Like, you get really good quality food, you could get them sick. But with crappier quality food, maybe they really do get sick. So I think it's an okay risk for sure. How do you grow algae like the stuff in my red Russian lace guppy tank? Put a really strong light on it, leave it on for a day, 2 days, 2 weeks, whatever. You'll start growing a lot of algae, assuming you're feeding the tank. You have a 5-gallon tank fully running. What should I do with it? Probably a betta. That's about the best use of a 5-gallon tank. All right. Any experience with stingrays? Yeah, I've had some experience. I haven't really kept them in person. I might at some point just to breed them. But I don't find them that fascinating. Lots of friends own them, and to me they're just kind of boring. But I keep them in the store to sell them and stuff. Daniel Quinn says, my 7-year-old daughter says you're her favorite. I appreciate that. I've actually managed to connect with some kids. There's some other people where the kids enjoy my videos too, so I like that. Brianna likes my shirt. Well, thank you. Can I speak a little bit about figuring out what volume of food different fish require? Okay. Besides very general things like feed as much as they're going to eat in 5 minutes and things like that, if the fish has a purpose, feed for that purpose. So if we're trying to breed the fish and we need to make eggs, we need to feed more high protein and more fatty acids to accomplish that. Likewise, if we're feeding like a German blue ram or keeping it 82 degrees, we're going to have to feed more food more frequently, or its metabolism is going to process that food too much. Also know that if you feed something with a lot of roughage, like you can feed way more brine shrimp than you can bloodworms, because brine shrimp, the shells work as a laxative. But some of those are things, I think I'd have to talk about specific fish to get a little more in depth, but those are general rules that could help most people, I feel like. Let's see. Aquarium Boy says, I'm going to turn my tank into a planted tank, and then scroll off the page, so I got to scroll back up. Any starting plants I could recommend? Sorry if you went over this earlier. I would say go to my website. Any of the plants I currently have listed are great starter plants. But basically, Anubiases, Java ferns, bulb plants, things like that. That's all pretty easy, yeah. Let's see here. Nitro Express. I think I have a pregnant, I'm guessing OTC is auto catfish, maybe? In your 20-gallon planted community tank, anything you could do or provide for her? Assuming you're talking about the auto, nothing really. Like, you'd have to give it its own aquarium. It's not easy to do. Michael, thanks for hanging out. Just set up your 29. Love Nest for the Epistos. Great, buddy. Let us know if they produce for you. Let's see here. Speaking of stingrays, can you get me another Matoro ray? Mine needs a friend. Yeah, probably. I'd have to look at the list, but it's not the best time to be ordering Matoros because it's a little slow season. But yeah, I could probably track you one down. Gary Pearson? Yeah, Person. He's asking about algae, but what was it? It was brown and orange algae. What does it mean? Typically, it means you either have a lot of silicates or phosphates in the water. Could be a newly set up tank. Could be an imbalance. I would need to know more about it. Let's see. Beast Rip Swing says you have a betta and it won't eat. Well, how old's the food? A lot of people feed their fish food that's old. Your food should always be less than 1 month old for sure. Otherwise, try some live foods from a local fish store if you can. What's my favorite fish dish to eat? This last week I had some salmon. I like salmon. Okay. I'm a sucker for fish sticks or deep fried salmon, both those. And I love smoked salmon too, but I'd say those are probably my favorite fish dishes. Let's see here. Do I sell killifish? I do sell a few at the store, yeah. Best angelfish. I'm partial to platinums and albinos. I also like wild types a lot. Uh, 400 lumens. The tank is 10 inches tall. The problem is lumens don't translate to par, so I don't know. You probably should have done this research before you bought the light. Like, if the company can't provide you a par value, the company's bad. So, like, that should tell you right there. Like, it's like buying a car and you say, how fast can this thing go? And they go, oh, we haven't tested it. I don't know. If they don't have a par value, just straight up email them and go, what's the par value? If they don't have it, they're bad. Yaman Yen asked me if I've eaten smoked salmon. Is it good? It is delicious. I love smoked salmon. Sometimes I'll trade fish for smoked salmon. It's amazing. Could you keep plants in a tank without fish for an extended period of time? Yeah, you totally can, Hex. You just use fertilizers. Like, the plants are there, or the fish are there mostly for just decoration, honestly. Let's see here. Do I have any tips for keeping freshwater flounders? I don't. I don't believe most of the flounders are freshwater, at least from the wholesalers. They always say they are, and then I watch them die in their tanks, and they always say, like, yeah, maybe those ones weren't fresh. So that is Stalker Points if he knew what my favorite dish was. Exotic freshwater fish, my favorite. If we're talking like pure, straight up exotic, pipefish are amazing. If I had someone to hatch out live baby brine and feed them for me every day, I'd probably keep them again. Modest says, can we talk about breeding shrimp? What kind are the best to breed? What plants do they like, etc.? They could care less about what plants. They don't care at all. They just want surface area. So rocks and wood do the same thing. And best kind of breed, it depends on what the metric is. If your metric is best thing to breed to sell, cherry shrimp without a doubt. If you got a different metric, let me know and I'll answer that. Cody says, will a pair of yellow labs live along with smaller Central South American cichlids, Acara, convex firemouse? Maybe. I mean, I don't recommend it. Could it be done? It could, but realize they kind of want different water parameters, but it could work. I don't want to be the guy that says it won't work, but I also can't be the guy that says, like, yeah, that's a good idea. So, it could work. Can you keep gouramis in a planted tank or just small fish? Yeah, most gouramis are plant safe. You could do that. I'm not ignoring you, guy. You keep asking me questions I can't answer. That's the problem. My blue betta is almost completely turned red and white. It started in the middle of the fish and is going toward the head. The tank was near a window. Nope, Chewy. Most times, bettas just change a lot. You're buying them really young at the store. Most people just don't realize. Let's see. Kevin Walden. Oh, wait, where'd you go? You were just there. Kevin Walden, how are most of our freshwater fish harvested by the wholesalers? Well, I'll say most things are harvested like just from the farms. Like most fish are going to be grown, but otherwise they're going to be usually caught by natives and then sold to someone that's going to fly them from a facility, if we're talking that way. I really hope to visit the Amazon, and maybe I should plan that trip for next year. I really want to do some collecting again. Let's see here. Any idea? So Michael Johnson says, any idea where I can get a completely freshwater mangrove? I don't know. Like, I feel like I've grown some mangroves in freshwater, but just, I don't know if I was too lazy or if they weren't true freshwater, but you really got to mist them and keep them moist. I would ask Greg Jones. He's got a channel, Greg Jones Online. Ask him where he got his, and that might be a good source. Renan's, you're in Alaska getting salmon. You know where to send some to, buddy. What's the biggest fish I've ever caught? Not that big. I stopped fishing when I was like 14 or something. And right now, like this day and age, I don't fish because I feel horrible for the fish, so I just don't enjoy it. Daniel says, we're going to test my tanks all at once. Will there be any cross-contamination through the vials? Well, the vial you should sterilize between every test, even in the same tank. So yes, you could contaminate other tanks, but really you should be sterilizing the vial anyway. What's the max time I can leave my tank light on so I don't kill the fish from a lack of fish? There is no max. Like a lot of wholesalers, stuff like that, or even I've left lights on for years straight. If you want the green water can help you. All right. Do suckerfish need a heater? It's a sucker catfish. Most of them do, Lucy. Yeah. Lewis says cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, or cilantro, salsa, and onions. I don't know what that's going on to, so I guess I need to know what that's going on to make up my mind. Will chlorine in tap water mess up my tests? Not really. Yeah, you should. Like my test strips that I sell, they actually test for chlorine as well at the same time. Do I buy from Florida fish farms? I actually don't buy almost anything. I think the last time I bought some Florida raised fish was probably about 8 months ago. The problem is it's not that the fish are bad. It's just Florida fish have really high pH, and I don't have very high pH at all. So it doesn't make sense for me to buy from them. Oh, I want to read that question. That was a good one. Justin asks, have I ever had the miniature Java fern? And does it have the same requirements as the other Java fern? I haven't seen a miniature version. I've kept miniature bulbitis and stuff like that, but I haven't seen the miniature Java fern. So, I haven't seen it. And usually when I haven't seen something, I'm curious about it because I'm like, I've seen a lot of crap. Now this guy's asking me who my transhipper is. Not going to tell you. Like next you want to know like my bank account number? Like you shouldn't really ask people business questions they can't answer. Like that's just not a good thing. What are the best fancy guppies to breed and sell? I would say just generic fancy ones. Don't go for a specific strain. Start with a mix first, and then you can go into different ones. Have I kept African dwarf frogs, and do I like them? I certainly have, and I do like them. I haven't kept them in a long time, but yeah, they're good. Henry Liu asks, what's the best fancy goldfish for beginners? If I had to pick one, I think the Orandas are the best, just because they seem to be the ones that get the least amount of swim bladder problems and stuff like that. So that would be my answer for there. Alan says predatory catfish for a 250-gallon tank. If it was me, I would do, if it's one fish, one tank, I feel like I would do a Tigrinus catfish is what I would do because it would look amazing. What do I think? What do you think when people say fish don't feel pain, and do you think they can? Scientific evidence is very back and forth. So when I attended some classes on koi and stuff like that and disease, and we were learning about microscoping and scraping and stuff like that, the guy that's basically like, he travels the world to help people on multi-billion-dollar facilities and stuff like that. He put it the best way, I think. He says, there's one camp that says, yes, they can feel pain, and we can test their pain receptors, and there is an elevation there. We can't know they feel the pain, but it does elevate levels. Then there's people that don't think they feel pain. And his logic is this. How about we just assume they feel pain and we don't have a problem? So that's why you'll use MS-222, which will also block pain receptors as opposed to just clove oil. Clove oil doesn't block pain receptors. And so I think he's right. In a perfect world, why not assume they feel pain and try to make it so they don't have a horrible life? If we're wrong and they can't feel pain, we're no worse off for it. Is it illegal to have bass or bluegill in a tank or pond? It would depend on what state you're in. in my state, it would be legal. I don't know about yours, though. Raymond, hey, Corey, would you ship any Episcoma borelli if you ever have some in stock? I won't ship any, but you could buy some from the wet spot. I've got a local breeder that's going to be supplying me with a lot of borelli, too, but I just don't want to open up that can of worms, because once I start shipping stuff, everyone's going to want stuff shipped. So you thought transshippers were a public thing, at least on Aquabid IR. Yeah, but those guys are real small fry. Like the 6 people doing that on Aquabid, like I could become a transshipper. All it costs is a $250 permit, and you can transship fish into the country. But like a transshipper that I would use, they're going to touch, millions of dollars in fish every year. They're way different on different levels. So that's why I wouldn't release that, because that's basically like telling you who I buy fish from. And that's not a good thing to release to the public, just because, like, let's say I tell you who I buy from and you contact them, that person's going to be pissed that someone that wants to buy $100 in fish even called them, because they're looking at me going, wait, you're not spending at least $5,000? Get off the phone. I don't have time for you. So if someone calls and wants to buy $100, they're going to be pissed. So that's why you can't release that kind of stuff. MCAT Clan asked if I'm rich. Heck no, I own a fish store. If I want to be rich, I'd be a tech company or something, like I have that background, but not rich. Very frugal. Ask my wife. Like I squeeze 2 pennies to make a dime. Let's see. What size tank does the wonderful looking Hillstrom loach would you recommend? Cold water suckerfish, looks like a stingray. Yeah, the reticulated Hillstrom loach, I'd say at least a 20. A 20 long would be better. They don't have to stay cool water. I keep them room temp all the time. Not room temp, but normal heated, and they thrive in my store, and I sell them that way, and everyone loves them and thrives them, and says they're thriving for them, and it's been that way for years for me. So let's see. Pets for Life said, I literally skipped your question. I probably did. It scrolls way faster. So if I skip your question, go ahead and re-ask it. Worst thing I'll do is, tell you I'm not going to answer that question. Freshwater Fix says, so I have 2 blue Gene Jack Dempseys who paired up about 2 months ago and they haven't spawned yet. Any tips to get them to breed? Well, if they were paired up, they were already bred. So you just have 2 Jacks that aren't killing each other. It could be 2 males, So the term of actually being paired up would mean they've actually spawned. But try playing with the temperature and making sure they're fed okay. But yeah, that's about the only advice I can give you there. Biggest fish I currently own would be my koi. Other than that, it's probably like a puffer fish that's 8 inches. Doosan asks, are bloodworms good? Yeah, it depends. For the right fish, I'd say most fish like them pretty good. What are good tank mates for biter eels? First, don't call them biter eels because they're not eels. They're polypterous. But for biters, good tank mates are anything that doesn't fit in their mouth. And depending on the biter, some get 3 feet, some stay 8 inches. So it depends on which one you're talking about. Am I going to sell Cracodon lateralis? Yeah, I mean, once they get to my store, sure. Minimum tank size long-term for Mubu Puffer. I consider the tank that I have at my store to be the minimum long-term. That thing's 6 foot by 4 foot by 2 foot tall, which is 360 gallons, and I auto water change 100 gallons every day. Have I ever heard of the Royal Plecoponoc Nigrolineatus being bred in captivity? Yeah, most of them are. I mean, at least the ones I can get a hold of, yeah. Yeah, I would say at this point, a lot of them are being bred in captivity. I mean, you can get them wild caught too, but wild caught costs more typically. Would you rather be rich or be stoked? I don't know what that means, MCAT. I think I posed the same question to you. Would you rather be rich or stoked? Let's see. Have I ever owned pearl scale goldfish? What is my biggest goldfish? I have some pearl scale goldfish growing out in a pond with one of my breeders. And the biggest goldfish I own probably, well, I mean, I don't know if it's the biggest one I've ever owned, but that Ryukin is a monster for sure. In Texas, you can keep wild fish but not sell or trade. That's pretty much true everywhere, because like they just don't want a pet store to go and collect stuff and then sell it because they don't want to ruin the environment that way. So there's a lot of states that are like that. Let's see. Corey, have you heard about the Sulawesi panther crabs? I have heard about them, but I've never kept them. So my opinion is they seem cool, but I haven't kept them yet. So kind of the jury is still out. I would keep them sometime, yeah. Syrian says, where can I buy a nice fish tank rack? Usually finding someone to custom make you one. You know, if you can find a welder that do some work on his off time, that's usually the best, especially if they're a fish keeper. Henry Lou asked if I ever kept a arowana. Yeah, I kept a, you know, like the latest one I kept was an albino silver arowana for quite a while. Yeah. I don't like arowanas that much. Part of the problem. Oh man, I skipped a bunch of questions. So if I missed you, just ask again. Sorry. What's the best brand of heater? Honestly, in my opinion, they're all bad right now. If I had to pick a winner, maybe the Aquascape Pro. Yeah, I mean, that one is the best. The problem is they've raised the price again. Like, I think they know they have the best heater, and they're just starting to gouge people now. So, yeah, that's how I feel like that. How to sex wood and bamboo shrimp? Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know that answer. I've never bred them, and I believe they need some salinity in the water to breed, but I don't know how to do that. So that's legitimate. Good question. I like that question, but I don't know that answer. If someone does, let us know. African lungfish, any experience? Yeah, they're a big brown turd. You know, they got crazy little, you know, alien arms, and they go to the bathroom the size of a dog. They're really powerful. Like when you move them, like when they're kind of at that 30-inch mark, they're really strong. Like, you know, when they're this big, they're nothing. But when you're trying to maneuver one, you're going, oh my God, this thing is a beast. But, you know, I've never seen anyone keep one longer than 3-4 years before they're like ultra bored of it. Beast Ripswing says, what's my plans on the Dove Eye? I don't know. I'm just growing it out for now, and then we'll see if I have a good tank for them. You know, I just kind of want to play with them. Thomas says, how do you get rid of yellow water? You could use Purigen. You could use carbon. Best way, though, would probably just be changing water. Let's see here. Any products to get rid of green water? Not really. I would use either a blackout on the tank for a week, which could be very hard on the plants, or a UV sterilizer is my preferred way. Epoch Vessel says, you have a neon tetra with badly nipped tail. Happened overnight. Best way to help it heal. The best way is make sure it doesn't get nipped on anymore, and if your water is healthy, it will heal up. If it gets infected, use some erythromycin. Adam says, do you know of any suppliers of Amazon fish that sell direct to the public? Fewer options up here in Canada. Your best option in Canada, Adam, is going to be Oliver Lucanus. He goes and collects a few times a year on, like, he was telling me on his, for like wild-caught discus, the waiting list is usually 2 years, and everything mostly goes to Japan at like $3,200 a discus. But he does bring stuff in, and I've wanted to get some stuff off him, but I got the same problem. Like, I'm down in the United States, and it's really hard to get it over the border. But he had some fish I wanted, and just follow him. I think it's Fish Below Water is his company name, and then Oliver Lucanus. You could look him up. He's a great speaker too. Let's see, dinosaur biters. So yeah, then you just have the normal Senegal biter, gets about 8 inches. Fish trappa. So I would say, you know, any wide body tetras, bigger barbs, angelfish, all that kind of stuff would do fine. You know, just avoid neons, cardinals, rummy noses, that type of thing. Does a new aquarium cycle any faster at a particular water temperature? I don't know. I haven't done the test. I mean, in theory, the metabolic rate would be a little faster with higher temperature, but you'd also have a little bit less oxygen. I feel like a little bit warmer water might be a little faster, but I don't think it'd make much of a difference. Do I like Roman Antwood's new marine tank? I don't know who that is, so no idea. Oh man, I skipped a bunch. Good Lord. Okay, here we go. Best carping plant, you have a planted plus light, modest. I'd have to know how deep your tank is. So answer that, and then I could probably help you. But yeah, it's going to be hard. It's mostly comes down to look anyway. Villager gets the day off. I am jealous. I worked, what, Friday? No, well, I didn't work. I shot videos on Friday. So Saturday, today, tomorrow. Then I have Tuesday off, so that's nice. Did you go to the PIDA show? We went to Orlando, Florida. One Globe Pet Show. Nope, I didn't go to that show. Nitro Express, what kind of air pump should I consider for a fish room with a quarter of the size I have. Maybe 10 20-gallon tanks and 440 breeders. That's a hard question. If you know you're into it for like the rest of your life, go ahead and buy like the smallest linear air piston pump. If it's something where you're like, well, maybe I'll build bigger or change it, get like one of the Alita air pumps. You know, like if you watch that live stream me and John did last Sunday, in that one he shows his air pump. Like one of those and a smaller one would be a good one for you. It's cheaper. What if I collect wild fish with my license as bait fish and just keep them and put them in a tank or a pond? Well, that'd be breaking the law. You know, it's kind of like asking, what if I sped and didn't get caught by the cops? Is it a crime? Yes, it's still a crime. You know, it doesn't make it any more legal because you have a license to use it one way and you use something as another way. I mean, realize the reason those rules are there is because when you screw up, which eventually you will, you're going to cause, you know, a natural disaster, basically. Justin, Corys are fairly popular in saltwater, but not so much in freshwater. Do I know the cause? Mostly because there wasn't a lot of them until about 2002. We didn't really know freshwater gobies existed. And now, you know, I've only got 2 forms in my store right now. I've got like the blue cobalt goby and the red lipstick gobies. I actually did a video on the red lipstick goby. I just haven't put it out yet, but it'll be coming out and you guys go, ooh, cool. But what I'm actually excited about is there's some freshwater blennies, which obviously know the saltwater, but I didn't know that till about 2 years ago. I haven't kept any yet though. Reef and Library Aquatics. Would you ever want to go to the Imperio tributary, a tributary to the Amazon, to look for? Looks like it got cut off for you, but yes, I would want to go. Looking for anything sounds awesome. Gary person asks, where can you get a horseshoe crab? I don't know. I honestly don't know that. Kevin Wall, the most expensive fish I've kept at the store that has died on me. My local fish store lost a $500 puffer after this bad storm over here. I mean, if you include like my Mabu puffer that died, that thing was kind of like priceless to me, you know. I mean, I sell Mabu puffers that are like this big for $225, and that thing was 2 feet almost. But let me try to think of the biggest like financial loss. See, the thing is, like, you think it's one fish, but I guarantee you it's going to be a bag of like 500 cardinal tetras or something that cost me way more money than that. That's what it would be. It wouldn't be just one fish. It would be like, oh yeah, a whole bag of shrimp died, like, and they were $3 each or something. Like, oh, that was, you know, $1,200. Like that's what it is, really. Oh yeah, and that tributary to look for tetras. Yeah, I mean, I was talking about this the other day with just some customers. I think if I go collect fish, I want to collect something I can breed, and I feel like I'm going to be way too lazy to breed tetras, and so I want to be able to say, hey, I collected that fish, the original location, and I bred them forever, type of thing. Austin says, what's the easiest way to get into koi keeping? Probably to buy like one of those big blue quarantine dream ponds like I have, and then get some filtration going and start small with the koi and learn. Adam says, any suggestions for bringing Brochus splendens into breeding condition different than your orange lasers? The best advice I have for you is feed them tons of live blackworms or tons of rapashi food. It's usually food holding them back, usually. What is the best Mexican food, and when did I last eat it? When did I last eat Mexican food? I want to say, last night. It was last night. And I guess one of those things I'm supposed to say my wife, right? But there's a couple of local Mexican restaurants I like, and I would say I really like enchiladas a lot. But I had tacos last night. My wife made them for me. I had a long day. Like yesterday was like, I was exhausted, and she made me tacos, so it was awesome. MC Cat asks, what's 50 plus 95,894? Well, you just add 50 to 94, and you're going to get 95,944, right? Yeah, not that hard. What kind of fish food pellets do you use in your squeeze bottle? I saw you using the video. You mentioned selling it possibly. It's just a very small, like, micro pellet grind that I'm using. I can't really tell you like where I get it from or anything because you're not going to be able to buy it in the quantity I buy it. But that is totally something I need to start selling. And mostly, John, it's your job. Harass me about it. Like if I get more and more harassed, I'll put it on the website and start selling it. But, you know, my list of things to do is this long. And each day I knock 2 things off the list and I add 5 more. And I'm really bad about getting everything done because if I didn't do YouTube videos and stuff, like even right now, I've spent almost 2 hours on here. I could have totally listed and bought all the supplies I needed for that food, but instead I do this. I don't know why. I should name the Dovi. I probably should, but I wait for fish to get bigger, so I feel like they got to get a personality. Let's see. How big of tank for an arowana? In my opinion, if it's just like a normal silver, really it should be like a marine land double deep, so 3 feet front to back at the bare minimum, because it's going to be a 4-foot thing. Do I know how to sex the Solawasi snails? I don't. I don't know how to sex them. Usually if you can get any of them from... they've already been like inseminated, so, they'll do all right. Yeah, I'll make sure... So we accidentally banned you, John. That was unintentional by Aquanet. So don't take it personally, buddy. That was a misfire. Misfire. Let's see. Oh man, I skipped a bunch. Is it Mexican food night? I kind of hope my wife makes me Mexican leftovers. When are you uploading the setting up a shrimp tank video? So Long, which is his name, as soon as I can grow some algae. So if I was to take you out there, you'd be like, how have you grown algae in every tank except for that one? Yeah, exactly. So I'm waiting for it to actually grow some algae because I keep telling everyone's got to grow algae. And so I really got to, really got to kind of do it. So let's see. Any products get rid of green water? That would just be a UV sterilizer. Yeah, let's see. Who else? Let's see. Justin asks, what do you do when someone says you're nuts when you tell them you spent $100 on 3 guppies? I ask them if they've ever been out drinking. And then they say yes. And then I go, you waste way more money than me. Or I say, do you drink coffee? Oh, you do? I don't. Oh, do you smoke? I don't. So there's all these things that most people do that I don't do. And, so I just say, instead of doing that, I spend a retarded amount of money on fish. We've all got our vices. Rosita's Mexican Grill is the best Mexican food in Seattle and Green Lake. All right. If I ever, I go to Seattle and Green Lake, but if I'm ever down there and I see that and I'm ready to eat, I'm going to try that. Thanks for the tip, Thomas. Yeah, Renan, I'm decent with math. I'm good at car lot math. And so you can instantly go, okay, this many fish at this much money. No, I'm not willing to give you $1,000 to do that. You got to be really good with math off the top of your head when you're looking at numbers, when you're talking about fish, because you can spend way more money than you think you're spending if you don't, car lot math in your head. You don't got to be exactly right. You just got to be pretty dang close, not drop a 0 or anything like that. Reef and library just wanted one answer. I'm not sure what the question was. Sorry, buddy. Can I just describe my goldfish feeding regime, growing out some Mirandas? So typically I have this tank being fed 3 times a day with an auto feeder. I could do 4, but the feeder doesn't hold enough for this tank. It's kind of runs out all the time. And then I feed them frozen at least once a day. If I'm not being lazy, which I am, so you'll be better than I will be, I feed them frozen twice a day. And that's usually brine shrimp to make sure they stay really regular. And if this tank wasn't with an overflow, basically where it had a sump, I'd be feeding lots of duckweed as well. I'm thinking I'm going to wrap this up in about 3 minutes, guys. Keep this one to 2 hours. I'm hungry and, let's see. Oh, man, I just skipped a bunch on accident. So Renan's looking for an answer to green water that doesn't cost $150. 1, my UV sterilizer at my store is only $70, but 2, do a blackout for a week. Reef and Library says, Corey, is there money to be made on breeding aquabid guppies? Yeah, there's a little bit. I would say, if you watch my my stream, or not my stream, my series on breeding fish, you'll know it's one of the least effective ways, but yes, you could. I know you're bigger into freshwater, but my local pet store has gotten captive bred yellow tangs, which is the first ever batch of captive grown yellow tangs, and I'm now working on breeding their tangs. Awesome. That's a good thing. What's the best and cheapest koi to have? Cheap koi is basically, they're all going to be mutts, so they're not going to be really any, like, go Sanke or anything like that. Plans for future videos on summer mini ponds? Maybe. It's getting late in the in the season. I've been busy and I have not done as much as I wanted to. What proportion of the fish that I sell are ideally suited for my tap water? Almost none. I have to put crushed coral in all my tanks. My tap water is too acidic, but most things do well in our tap water as soon as you add a little bit of crushed coral. Yanaman Yen asks, do I accept fan mail? Yeah, I've gotten some fan mail at the store to ship it to my store, and that way I don't have to worry that, people are creeping up on my house, and they can just, send it to my store. And I appreciate if you don't send me anthrax. That'd be nice. I would wish not to die from fan mail, but, if it's got to be, it's got to be. Do you ever have a nightmare that you forgot to feed a tank? I don't, because missing feeding a tank, it's not going to do anything. Like, I have nightmares that a tank's going to blow out. That's a real pain. But will black mollies breed with lighter tails? Yeah, sure. Yep. Let's see. I got about 1 minute. Let's see if there's any more good questions here. Tips on dragonfish, like as in the brackish water fish? Dragonfish is a common name. There's a few fish that go by that. My betta has fin loss. Is there any way to help the fins grow back? Keep clean water, use catappa leaves, and use erythromycin. You can grab that on my website. Nope, I haven't got that net on my koi pond yet. It's a need to do it thing. Just haven't done it. Maybe I'll do it Tuesday. We'll see if I have enough time. Epoch says, I have a dirted 5-gallon shrimp tank with MTS and have too many detritus worms for my taste. They just look gross. Any way to deal with them besides just water change? Look into using flubendazole. It's a dog dewormer that can usually get rid of that for you, and it's shrimp safe. But look into it, research the dosing and all that. Do you forget your drip acclimation fish or left your RO unit for hours? No, I don't drip acclimate, so it never happens to me. Yeah, so I think I'm going to start wrapping this up. It's 9:30. We've been going for 2 hours, a little more than 2 hours. So I want to reiterate, as soon as I hit stop, this video is going to go live on YouTube. Leave your questions for next week down there. And if people upvote them and give them the thumbs up, then I'll address them. And so you can give me really complex questions, and I can have time to think about it, make sure I give a good answer, as long as everyone else agrees. So if you ask a question like, why are you such an idiot, Corey? And if everyone thumbs up it, I'm going to have to answer it. But if everyone else doesn't agree with you, then I won't. So do that kind of stuff. Check out my other videos. Check out the video I did with John. That's on his channel. Sorry, my throat. Buy all the things on my website. Shameless plug there. Hopefully you actually need something from me, and shoot me an email if you need help with stuff. I do answer emails. Realize, take some time. Last thing, don't call my store. A lot of people are calling my store, and it really jams up the store when I'm answering questions, because I don't want to be like, sorry, guy, don't have time to help you. So I do help you. Meanwhile, I've got people standing in the store going, is this guy ever going to get off the phone? So shoot me an email. I'll get back to you when I can. Yeah, so thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate it. I hope this was fun. Someone count how many questions I answered. I have no idea how many it was. Hopefully it was like 1 billion. And hopefully I kept up enough. It's getting harder and harder the more people we have, but it's getting more and more fun, I think, anyway. But, you guys let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to like the video as soon as it uploads. That'll help more people see it. We can hang out again next Sunday night, 7:30 Eastern, or 7:30 Pacific time. 10:30 Eastern. I'll be here. Will you guys be here? Hope so. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. It is time for tacos.